Hey everybody, welcome back. Maniac Guy coming back to you from another cold New England day. So we're going to be talking about the 1860 Army. This is a Pietta replica of the Colt 1860 Army 44 caliber. So we're going to go over manual of arms with this today, proper reloading and firing of it. And we've gotten some comments that we haven't really gone over those things, even though I've done videos on the handgun, or as this would be black powder pistol. And we've done a lot of videos in the cleaning and takedown of it. I'll post those in the description below. But today is going to be all about firing. Today is going to be all about the, like I said, manual arms and proper reloading. So if that sounds good, stay tuned and we'll get right to it. Okay, so right first thing, manual of arms, how to safety this particular weapon. So as you can hear, you got a half cock. That frees the cylinder. And then full cock, which makes you ready to fire. To release the hammer, you pull back on the hammer, pull the trigger, and let it go slowly forward. You got to get comfortable with that with these old style black powder revolvers. It's the only way to do that. Now, if you want to safety it, you pull back the hammer just a little bit so you free it up. You don't go quite to half cock. And if you can see right down in there, there's nipples in between, like a little nipple nub in between each nipple where you're going to put the cap. So there's just these little nubs in there. Now those nubs will index on this notch right here. So if I want to safety this and it's got a loaded cylinder, I will put it right down in there, and that one went perfectly, but we'll go here. Let's say that's not perfect. Now listen to it. You'll see it index. So now that's locked the cylinder and it can't fire. And for all intents and purposes, this is safety. So that is all you have for safety on this, and that's how you do that. Okay, so now we're going to go through step by step how to take all this and put it into that and make you a boomstick. So the first thing you're going to need is powder. So this is your propellant. This is the original replica of a Colt flask. And you need to use, first of all, let's get that right out of the way, you need to use a black powder or equivalent. So do not be using any modern powders or anything like that. This is the Pyrodex powder that I'm using. I'll insert a picture of what it looks like, and I'll do that right here. So as you'll notice, it's got the green label. It's P-rated. There's different ones for rifles and pistols. So be sure you get a pistol powder or equivalent black powder. And so that all goes in the flask here. Now you can use that goes right in the cylinder here, which we're going to take you step by step with that. As we discovered in a previous video that we did, 26 grains or 24 grains was a little light, but you can use that. It's pretty accurate. It's not a lot of powder. You can go up to like 36 grains or even maybe 42, depending on the pistol you're using, the walkers and things like that. So we're going to be shooting 30 grains today. How do I know it's 30 grains? Well, this is actually how you measure the throw of powder, which we're going to go over that. But if you can see right on the side of this here, are you getting that, cameraman? Yep, he's giving me the nod. Yes, it tells you how many grains of throw this is. So I've got all these different ones that have all different equivalents of throws of powder. So there's different grains. So and I've got a powder horn that does the same thing, and these are the same thread pitch. So these literally just thread in. And then I can thread these in, and that's how much powder is held in this funnel. So to dispel people saying you should never load right from the flask and things, and it's the same thing with my powder horn, why this is a safe thing to do, and the reason why it's designed to load this way is basically when this is screwed in, I rock back on this spring, I pour the powder into the funnel, I let the spring go. So now there's all this copper, there's this huge copper door, there's this huge brass door that flips into place that effectively seals this off from the rest of the powder charge. And now all I've got left is inside of this with a 1/4 inch of brass between the flask and the powder, and what I've got in here and any plausible embers I might have in my sidearm. I've got that door that just swung to. So that's how we measure it, literally, is by doing this kind of deal, letting that go, bringing this up, and then what's left inside is actually the throw of powder I need for the sidearm. So that's how we measure the powder right there. And like I say, this is an original Colt flask replica, right down to the design on it. So there's your powder and how to measure it. So these here are felt wads and those are going to index on top of the powder charge that we're going to pour inside of the cylinder. That's going to prevent things like chain fires and things like that, meaning embers get from one chamber to the next and then they all go off at once. This is something that does happen sometimes, but not when you use your felt wadding and things like that. Balls. So the balls are actually 454 caliber. They're not actually a 44. They're slightly oversized. So you want to go with a 451 or a 454. I prefer the 454s. They just give me a bit tighter of a fit and a better seal in my chamber. And bore butter, as always. I always want to have plenty of bore butter around whenever I'm doing anything with black powder, just because it's a great lubricant. It's all natural. It's kind of like seasoning in cast iron fry pan. And now last but not least, what we've got over here, take these gloves off so I can kind of show you. We've got primers. Now I'm going to use, you can use whatever brand you want, Remington, CCI. I take whatever I can get just due to availability. But you want to use either the number 11 or the number 10 percussion caps. The number 10s are going to fit a little tighter than the 11s, but they all will work. I prefer to use these inline cappers because it's a little hard, if you pan up over here, to hand index on these nipples. So what I do, and I'll show you how this all pieces together, is we actually use these inline cappers that give us an easier kind of placement of the cap on the nipple. So, all right, well, that's all we've got for components. So now it's just time to get it all put together and load it up. So, all right, guys, let's get to it. All right, guys, so here we go. So the important thing to remember, we're going to put the pistol on half cock. We're going to take our powder. We're not going to put on the caps yet because I don't want live fire over chambers that I'm loading. So for all intents and purposes, this is a paperweight until we cap it off. So there's that powder, like I had mentioned. Different people have different ways they like to do it. But now I've got a powder charge in there. And then I index my wad over the powder charge. And the reason why I do it that way is because I don't want to forget and accidentally do a double charge in a cylinder. So now we've got those all on there. So you might be saying, well, where's the ramrod? So you notice this little round kind of cutout here. That's so that you can fit the ball in there. Your ramrod is right here. So it's double knurls. Pull that down. It's got like a round cup on the bottom of it that fits perfect on the ball. And then we're going to take and just push the ball back in. Make sure it's in there good. Now, if you notice, there's a little lead ring that just came off there. And that lead ring is what shaves off the side of the ball, and that's how you know you've got a good seal on your ball. Now we're still on half cock where we're working. So we just go around with one ball at a time. Also kind of important to make sure you don't double ball something, which is another reason why I like the yellow felt wads. They're pre-treated with boar butter, by the way. That's why they're yellow. You don't have to get ones with boar butter, but I do enjoy using the ones with the boar butter because it's good for the metal on the gun. And by the way, I've been shooting this particular black powder pistol for probably around 17 years, 20 years, right in there. So just kind of pounding these lead rings out of there because we don't want them to get all goobered up in there. So now the cylinder's loaded at this point. However, this gun, I don't really want to dry fire by dropping the hammer down on that, but for posterity's sake, she ain't gonna fire. There's no caps there. Don't recommend doing that all the time. So don't try this at home, kids. Just you can flatten the end of your nipple a little bit and then have a hard time getting your caps on. So we're not going to do that all the time. But just so you can see, it's loaded, but it's still a paperweight until we get it primed. So we'll get into that now. Okay, now here we go for the very last one. So we're going to come right up here, come right over that, go right on over the nipple, pull back. So now this is the part where it's got all the caps on. We're all set there. Now we're going to come back to full cock, but we're going to be very careful to not engage that on the nipple. Now we're going to put it on that little notch right there, like I showed you before. And there we go. So there she is right there, all set and ready to fire. Alrighty, guys. So now we're going to put it all together, and let's put some shots down range. So we're all loaded. Got it back on full cock. And there's 6 shots. Get rid of some of those primers. Now let's bring the target in and see how we did. So as you can see, these old black powder revolvers are really nothing to shake a stick at. That's not a bad 6-shot group right there for what it is. Alrighty, so that's the manual of arms, loading, firing, and a little bit about the 1860 Colt Army, this version by Pietta. So hopefully that answers everybody's questions. If anybody has any questions or concerns about how to load these properly, hopefully this video helps out, and hopefully you found it a little bit entertaining. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for coming along on all of our crazy adventures, and as always, have a good one. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye now. Okay, so 2 more things to think about is how often should you clean these? Well, you can have some rudimentary supplies, so you can clean it while you're out at the range for the day. So far, we've put 3 cylinders through this. I just loaded up a 4th for a little bit more plinking. We'll probably put 5 or 6 cylinders through it today, and I don't imagine we're going to have any problems. Other thing, you definitely want to clean it when your range day is done. You don't want to leave these things without cleaning them and like shelve them like you would a modern firearm. We won't get into the semantics of whether you should do that or not, but you can't do it with black powder. They have to be cleaned every time after you're done with a shooting session. Don't necessarily have to be cleaned in between shots or anything like that. I recommend checking each chamber in your cylinder after you fire it every time, just to make sure there's no red embers or anything like that in there, because you are pouring black powder in there. So whether or not, you just don't want your hands over that without inspecting it. But again, this is the 4-cylinder, and she's still going fine. Let's see if I can't. Okay, so we've got the cameraman doing some shooting here. And just kind of talking about, got me thinking about the whole chain fire thing, and that putting those felt wadding on there in between each cylinder. Your odds of a chain fire are pretty much nil to none with a tight fitting ball and a felt wad. I've never had one in almost 20 years of shooting this thing. So just a thought. It actually does do the trick.